is aware. Even here. If you want chats, you just click here and go to chat, but I think it's small enough.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
We don't have to worry about that, but I'm going to keep that up just in case.
Anybody comes in, I'll let them in from there.
So I am going to let Billy just take it over. It's his workshop. So we're so excited to have you and that you're providing these ways for us to communicate better.
That's right.
And go from there. But I'm going to let you take it away. Feel free to be intimate and ask questions and all of those things. And if you need anything, I'm just going to be in my office.
Chrissy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks to the Chamber for letting me host this.
Absolutely.
For those on the call, this is my first time hosting this type of an event for the Chamber and my first time with this presentation specifically. So I'm excited to kind of dig into it with you. You can take a look at the agenda with me. Definitely a full one, but we'll start off with kind of a background in communication. I pulled a quote that's one of my favorites that we can kind of dig into how it spins the meaning of what language really is. And then we'll look at what a universal language is. And one of those is DISC. So that's going to be the main topic today. Look at applications of that. Definitely spend a lot of time on those unique 4 different DISC behavioral styles, what it means to be a high D or a low C. I'll look at a quick exercise. For those of you at home, you'll have just a pen and paper and you'll be all set. Ureli, I'll give you a piece of paper as well. It'll just be a quick little scribble you'll get to do for that quick exercise. And then we'll spend some time on questions and what takeaways you might want from this. But my name is Billy Fischer. I am with Focal Point, and I've been a coach with them since January of this year. So something very new for me. My background is engineering and engineering management. So I spent 12 years at Toyota here in Columbus. And prior to that, I was in college. So that's really like all I knew as far as industry and what corporate life was like. But Focal Point, I found them to be like a really just exciting group of premier business leadership coaches. There were 240 of them from all around the world. And I lined up with their values. They were very clear on what their values were, the things that they held most important for coaches. They resonated with me. And so I decided that it was worth a shot, big career change, and trying to make that work. Well, let's take a look back at some history. Did the slide advance for you all on Zoom? Because it didn't for me. There we go. So Empedocles, back in 444 BC, he was kind of a student of medicine, student of the human body, and he came up with a way to describe all matter in 4 different ways. So you've got earth, air, water, and fire. And it was Hippocrates that came a little bit after that associated those with moods and behavior, and then sort of categorizing people in that way. Then Galen came along. He added moods and energy to that conversation and came up with the first predictable behavioral model. Carl Jung identified thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And that was the groundwork for personality typologies. And then most recently on this list, William Marston, he formalized the 4 observable behavioral styles in emotions of normal people. And those were the same that we see in DISC today: dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. You might also recognize that name. Marston was the creator of Wonder Woman. So he had quite the life. He also developed a lie detector test that used a blood pressure monitor. So he was doing a lot. He kind of was one of the founding people of behavioral analytics. So human behavior, we know it's been studied now for over 2,000 years, and DISC is one of the modern languages of that understanding. These are some companies that use DISC, so you'll see a lot of really big corporations. One of my favorites, my alma mater, Purdue's on there. Purdue, their basketball team is pretty decent. They're ranked #1 in the country right now, and their coach, Matt Painter, is a huge DISC advocate. He is something that he uses in recruiting and with player development, and so it can really be used in a lot of wonderful ways. Another list of companies there, just again, big companies and ones that you definitely hopefully will recognize. So this is the longest quote that I brought today. Like I said, it's one of my favorites from a book by Alan Moore. I'll just read it. I have a thing about language, words that describe a process or a new technology or an idea. By constantly evolving our language and knowledge, we are constantly upgrading ourselves and our capacity to create and design better things. This is how one works in a multidisciplinary fashion. Being able to cross over from an idea to how to make it and describe it to someone else. Having knowledge, even a basic understanding of new ways of working and making, enables us to boost our creativity. Lee Iacocca said it in a few less words: communication is everything. It's very simple, but certainly very powerful. And then Peter Drucker looked at a way to say the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. So kind of a read between the lines situation. I love this next slide. It's a chart. I love charts. And it's about communication and how it breaks down between words and nonverbal communication, and then sort of the way that you say things beyond the words. So call it the 7-38-55 method. Albert, that psychologist listed at the bottom, is the kind of the creator of that breakdown, but really comes down to the pitch and the pace and the volume, your tone and emotion, more important than the words you choose. But most important is 55% of nonverbal communication. So like me standing in this room right now, I don't have the greatest like speaking. I don't use my hands a lot. So I'm just kind of moseying back and forth. And so maybe I'm making eye contact with the TV more than I am with Ureli, who's right here in the room with me. Come on, be better. The way to listen with your eyes is how you're going to pick up on those 55% nonverbal cues. Understanding what you're seeing and what you're picking up on with more than just your ears. So what is a universal language? Really, it's not a language as we think of a written language, but it's how we act. It's our way of doing things. And so that ends up being both neutral and silent, because it's something that you can't perceive by words. What a universal language is not is personality. It's not someone's skills and experience, not their education and training, or how intelligent they are, or what values and beliefs they hold dear. But what it can help you do is improve your effectiveness in all of these areas: communication, management and leadership, sales, negotiation, and even recruitment and selection. So some of the outcomes, if you're here, and thank you for being here, if you're here today, these are what I hope that you can come away with. You have an understanding of what your own behavioral style looks like. You'll be able to recognize a little bit of the behavioral style of others, and you'll understand how you can adapt your style for most effective communication and relationships. Now the magic word, DISC. DISC is that universal behavioral model, and it goes into 4 separate factors of dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. So kind of to put it simply, it's how a person does what they do. It creates a language around observable behavior. And those different styles break down this way across the population. D is 17%, I 38%, and S with steadiness, 32% of the population falls into that primary category. And then the C is your lowest at 13%. So we don't have a lot of people that follow all the rules out there. The assessments that we'll look at today, they look at 2 different styles. So there's a natural style. That's how you work if you were left of your own volition, and it's comfortable for you. It's what you do inherently. Versus the adapted style, where that is something that is based on your environment. What's required for you to do the job. And that can often be uncomfortable because it's only a learned behavior. All right, so we'll start looking at these individual types now. So D for dominance, this is the factor that measures how someone handles challenges and problems. I'll read to you now the high D and what that means. A high D is someone with direct communicators that are ambitious, forceful, decisive, strong-willed, and goal-oriented. They tend to seek out as facts and details over enthusiasm. In general, they prefer to get to the point as quickly and concisely as possible. Now, if you are a low D, instead of being that direct communicator, you're going to be a little bit more reflective. And so a low D, the people with a low D score thrive on a team and are wonderful teammates. Their low-key approach, friendliness, and dedication to making things work ensure their teammates have the support they need to complete projects. Reflective communicators can also hesitate when starting projects. Their ability to weigh pros and cons and consider different points of view is great for planning, but not always entirely helpful for execution. So I definitely fall into that trap. I'm a high D, so that's one of the downsides of that. All right, here are some of the key takeaways. For those of you on the Zoom call, you didn't get this handy little cheat sheet. Schedule some time with me when you get back in town, and I can definitely provide one of those to you. But it gives you kind of some key characteristics to look for and some do's and don'ts with how to communicate with these styles. So on this slide, you have that for the high D. This would not apply to a low D so well. All right. We'll look at the same thing for I and the influence style. This is a factor that measures how someone handles people and other people, contexts in their life. So if you're a high I, you're very outgoing. Outgoing communicators are people-oriented, optimistic, and enthusiastic. They are creative problem solvers and are skilled at negotiating conflict. They want action and intention up front and tend to strongly believe in their own ideas and dreams. This big picture thinking gives them a unique perspective, but can also get in their way. So on the flip side, if you are a very low I, that means that you are reserved. Reserved communicators are masters of practical details, and won't hesitate to ask the hard questions to get the job done. They are great at capturing the scope and needs of projects and will make sure everything is accounted for. Reserved communicators rely on others to create engagement and pull a group together. They struggle to make the first move or take initiative when it comes to making connections. So we'll look now at those same indicators for the high I behavioral style. So these are the people that are spontaneous, but they might be discouraged by other people's enthusiasm. They also don't like if you dominate the conversation, so you want to let an I come in and then share that enthusiasm, share their spontaneity, and just be themselves. Some of the body language identifiers there, you see hands in pockets, somebody that's maybe very expressive, very touchy-feely, that would be probably a high I. Looking at the high S for steadiness, S measures the factor of how someone can handle pace and consistency, so the speed of their environment, very environmentally based. If you are a high S, steady communicators prefer a slow pace, defined responsibilities, and clearly outlined expectations. They are considerate, compassionate, and accepting of others, but might seem indifferent or hesitant on the surface. A high S, while usually open to others, they might not always come across that way. They can seem disengaged with unfamiliar groups and will avoid the spotlight, which can lead them to not fully contributing when they're most needed. Once again, those identifying factors for the S, the high S. So very approachable. They're team players. If you're going to talk to them, you want to slow down and take your time, give them time to make decisions and think about what you're saying. Try not to be restless around them or make sudden changes to the plan. And then for body language, if you've got somebody that's a really good poker player, they've got a good poker face, maybe they're a high S. All right. Lastly, compliance. The C factor measures how someone handles procedure and constraints. I mentioned before that there's maybe the fewest of these high Cs in the population, but I'll tell you a little bit more about a high C. They are dependent, neat, careful, and compliant. They want to get the job done right and thrive on establishing routines and processes to follow in the workplace. They avoid conflict at all costs and enjoy analyzing communication patterns of others to develop their own people skills. They prefer database decisions and logical information over emotional information. So if you're a high C, you're going to be really good at picking up what DISC means and how you can apply it to communicating with others. On the flip side, if you are a low C, that means you're a pioneering communicator. It means you're independent, unconventional, and outspoken. They like finding the best outcome with the best possible means, no matter how random or experimental. They prefer an uninhibited work environment and work best under leaders who trust in their ability to complete the tasks their way. And I'm actually a low C as well. So the two most impactful scores for me is first, like a slightly high D, and then a very low C. And so it falls in line as that. I would have a high I score if you looked at the chart. We'll look at that in a minute. But really the most impactful thing to take away is that that low C means a little bit more. So here are those key identifiers for C. They can be a perfectionist, very analytical and systematic. If you're communicating with them, give them time to think and decide, kind of like an S. Help focus on the quality pieces and be patient. Don't touch them. Don't touch a C. Don't discuss personal issues, and try not to overly socialize. Be a little more reserved with them. Keep things to yourself. It says few hand gestures on body language is one of the identifiers there. All right, time for pen and paper time. I'll hand that to you, really. You want yellow or green?
Let's do green.
All right, there you are.
Thank you.
So for those on the virtual call, just try and draw this grid, just an X and a Y axis with labels at each side. Task on the top, people on the bottom, reserved on the left, outgoing on the right. So we'll focus on that vertical axis first. Think about how you work, how you perform. Are you more task-oriented or more people-oriented? What's gonna kind of help you move faster? So place a star or an X on which side of that, and you can scale it too. If it's like really high task, put that X way up at the top. If it's I'm a people task, I'm a people-oriented person, put that down at the bottom. And then we'll do the same thing horizontally. If you are kind of an introvert, more reserved in nature, X or star to the left. If you are more extroverted and outgoing with your personality, put that mark over to the right. Okay. We'll just see if these two examples fall in here. So if you have that marked, then you're going to be looking at that top left quadrant. So here on the next slide, I'll give you where the DISC letters fall based on this really high level summary. We'll go ahead and write those 4 letters into those quadrants now, and you can figure out where you landed. I'm looking at Ureli's in the room here, and it looks like she's maybe a high D. She kind of graded herself along the midlines, didn't go way out to the extremes. And we'll talk about what that means on the next couple of slides when we look at these traditional DISC charts. But so that's the quickest way to get an idea of like maybe what is my most dominant type. Amy, what was yours?
I'm definitely a C.
I kind of figured that. I kind
I
of
like
thought maybe you might be.
to follow those rules.
Yes. Monica, how about you?
High I and low C.
I and low C. Very
No
good. And
rules.
you probably taken the assessment before, like gone through the whole problem, right?
Sorry.
Then you've probably taken these assessments before.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I didn't remember. I didn't have my, because there is a longer assessment, right? But it,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
yeah, but it's very straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, the assessments that we give, they take about 15 to 20 minutes, but the reports that you get from them are just outstanding. So we'll talk about those a little bit now. So this is the traditional DISC graph on the left. That's kind of what most people think of when they hear about the DISC style. But what a lot of people lose when looking at that chart, and so if you look at the right side of that chart with the high D and the next highest is I, you would think, well, I'm a high DI. But if you look closely, it's that slightly lower C that is bigger on the continuum side than that high I. And so you would properly diagnose this person as a high D, low C. So many people were kind of losing it in what those two highest bars were and looking at just that. When if you're hovering near that midline, it's really going to be more impactful with looking at maybe what's on the very low side. So what we've seen, especially on our reports, we spend a lot more time looking at this behavioral continuum, where if you've got the right versus the left, the right side is all of your high scores up to 100. And then the left side is definitely characteristics of the low, where you've got, again, a continuum. So there's something that's meaningful if you're on the low side of that continuum. In this case, someone that's pioneering versus precise. Any questions on these charts? I know that can be kind of a little bit overwhelming at first because there's a lot on them. There's also the star. If you notice the star, that means that's the adapted style. And so what that gives you as a visual is, in conjunction with that little arrow bar, it shows you how much you are having to adapt to work well in your current environment. And so thankfully, these are actually my scores. I can share that. This one, for me, I don't have to adapt too much. I kept everything. It kind of just brought everything closer to the midline on my adapted style, which makes me a little bit of a chameleon because I'm not like, I'm super like obvious that I'm one thing versus the other. So that's the good thing. But then the bad thing about it is it gives me a little bit of disc blindness myself on trying to evaluate others. It's not something that I have picked up on naturally here in like 9 months of studying this. So I just have to continue to lean on what I'm pretty good at, which is discernment. So in addition to these charts, TTI, the organization that we paired with for these assessments, came up with the Success Insights wheel, and it's a wheel of 60 plots. And so again, you see the quadrants. You have D in the top right, I in the bottom right, lower right, and S in the lower left, C in the top left. So if you are on the outside of this wheel, that means that you have only one style that is above the midline. So again, kind of a rare number of people that have those, but in that case, they're very high, that one thing. So the D conductor has only the D above the midline, and so they're space 1 on the wheel. If you look at space 2, they're going to have a blend of that. So they're going to have both a D and an I above the line, but everything else below the line. So as you draw inward on the wheel, what that gives you is just the other quadrants of the DISC assessment. They're kind of pulling and tugging more at those scores. And so I like this next graphic really nicely. It's hard to see on the screen. Maybe if your screen's really big, you can see it like us, but each of those plots on the wheel have their own unique chart signature as far as what's going to be up above the midline, what's going to be down below it. And so there's that many unique combinations of how you can have a particular DISC score. And what this is really effective for is if you have a full team of people that you want to give DISC assessments to, you can go back and plot them like that with names on the natural and adapted styles and see how certain teams either complement or harm one another as far as how they're working together. So we found a lot of success using this tool with our teams. All right. So why would we study bit and disk? There's 4 things that I've listed here. So gaining commitment and cooperation from people. Like I mentioned just now, building effective teams is a huge piece. If you are wanting to resolve conflict before it starts, prevent it. Or unfortunately, you're already living through some conflict and you want to try and make it a better situation, DISC assessment could help. And then lastly, gaining endorsement. So what do I mean by endorsement? I mean the approval, backing, or support of a person or thing by means of pledging one's own assets. You can look at that on kind of 3 different scales. Individually, if I as an individual have your endorsement, that means that you're always going to provide the resources necessary to maintain or improve a lifestyle. If an organization has your endorsement, it's going to provide the resources necessary to maintain or improve its growth. And if you look at it from like a geopolitical standpoint, if a nation has their endorsement, it will always be provided the resources necessary to maintain or improve that standard of living for its citizens. So it's all about getting people's endorsement in life. And I think this is one way that you can kind of get a better chance at communicating well with the people in your life and the teams in your life. Again, whether it's your workplace, whether it's your family, or whether it's a cause you support in your community. There's always an opportunity to communicate better. I think the DISC tools are a great way to do that. So questions and takeaways. We really burned through this, you guys. We're at like half an hour clip. It's going to be an early lunch, I think. Number 1, commit to some action regarding the information that you consume today. It's a matter of gaining knowledge versus applying that knowledge. You can always get a little more out of things if you apply it, put it into practice. And then I'll ask you for your key takeaways. You're in the room. Any key takeaways that you've got?
Yeah, was really impressive to see the, different categories and what to do and what not to do with maybe someone else that's very different from you.
Yeah.
I did have a question on this
Please.
one.
Yeah.
I think it was the graphs that confused me just a bit. I categorized myself in the middle for both because I feel I don't feel like I'm too dominant,
Right.
but somewhere in the middle. But I also consider myself outgoing, but also a little bit reserved. So it was kind of hard to choose.
You're probably also like one of those chameleons. Are you consider yourself pretty flexible?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a strength. If you're on the inside of that wheel and you're having a lot of different like pulls from the different segments, that also typically means you're a pretty flexible person. You're probably easy to work with, to be honest. So that's a good thing to be. Amy, biggest takeaway?
Yeah, there's no shocker here. I felt like as soon as you started describing the different categories and how they, some of the traits they have, as soon as you said rule follower, I was like, okay, I know where I am. But similar to Ureli, I feel like I'm definitely on the inside where there are times where I have to be dominant. There are times, there's definitely times as an HR manager, I have to be people oriented. And I feel like I can easily do that. I don't feel like I'm challenged too hard when I do have to step out of my comfort zone. So I do feel like I'm definitely sort of more in that inner circle where I'm closer to all of them, adaptable. My question, I guess, is in the research and studies and everything, when you're like a C, that you're dominant. And so therefore my low end would be the I. Do you find that those different traits complement each other, or do you find that they actually have to work harder because they're so different. Because I know sometimes they always say subtract, and I'm just like curious in the workplace if that's true, or do you find like, no, there actually can be more conflict because you are so different, and so you have to really recognize that about yourself. I'm just curious what the findings are when you do have people that are on a team. Do they complement each other? Do you want to find someone that balances your dominance, for instance? Because sometimes if you have two dominant people, there can be conflict. So I'm just curious what that looks like.
Absolutely. So it's always best to have a complement of everything, right? So if you can get a well-balanced team that's hitting on all the pieces of it, then you're going to be able to complete all of the tasks no matter what, because you're going to have a good plan, you're going to have momentum, you're going to have the rules and the structure, you're going to have the consistency. So you asked a great question about like, who do I not work well with? On this chart here, it's the ones that you are diametrically opposed to. So a high D is not going to naturally work well with a high S unless they adapt their style. A high C is not going to naturally work well with a high I unless they adapt their style. And so that's kind of how you can look at that. And again, once you get closer to the middle, that sort of opposition, that butting heads gets less severe because those people in the middle are the most flexible.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any key takeaways or questions from you?
Yeah, it was good to see that the disc has a view for natural style and adapted style. And I wanted to hear more about that. I think it's very interesting because many behavioral models go for the natural style, and we assume that we have adapted, but we go back to the natural. But the adapted is a very important part as well.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think it's most effective if like you are using the DISC assessments for, say, like a certain job description. You're pairing it with this job. We're looking at this type of a person does the best job in this role. You're going to want to look at that on the person's natural style, because if they are having to go wildly out of their comfort zone, out of their natural style and adapt to that, it's probably not going to be a good fit. And so when we look at everything on the adapted style, it's not a matter of, like I say, how the person is perceiving themselves. It's really about how are they doing the work to fit into and conform to the role that they are in. And so, trying to think how better I could explain that, Monica.
And does the disc have any, like, how do you deal with that? I think you showed us a chart that had like two. One was the natural and the other was the adapted. The one before.
Go back. All right, yep, that one.
Yeah. So, can you speak to the one that the left side of it, the graph 1 and graph 2?
I can. So, like for instance, the natural style is a high D. You notice it's a little bit more separated compared to the high I. Versus the adapted style, this person, which is me, I become less dominant in the role that I'm in, and I become a little bit I stretch to become more steady, and I stretch to become more reflective versus direct. And you can see that on the kind of the chevrons or the arrows on the continuum chart on the right. That's indicating like which way by adapting are you moving to get to that adapted score. And thankfully with mine, I wasn't, like I say, adapting too much. But if you see on the report that we do with debriefs, if you are seeing that there is like a huge gap or someone is jumping like even diametrically opposite for their adapted style, that is a huge red flag for like, we need to dig in and figure out, what does that mean? What's going on here? Is it just a season that person is in, that they're going through like some difficult challenges at work? Or is it something where they are just not in the role that they were destined to be good at?
And how do you make this evaluation? So do you take both evaluate? How do you come up with the graphs? So one is because when you take the assessment, you go for the natural, or does the assessment evaluates both the
The
natural?
assessment gives you both scores. The
Okay, I
assessment will
forgot,
give you
yeah.
both scores. Yep.
Because I've taken, but I had forgotten. And it reminds me of a time when I applied for a job and we become adaptable with years. With the years, we learn to become adaptable. So I thought, yeah, I can do this. I probably could have done it well, but the interview went pretty well. Everything was good. And then, after different rounds, they said, no, I think you probably can do this well, but we don't think that this is the job for you. You are more people oriented. And that's true. And looking back, I'm so grateful I didn't end up in that job, because it was all about like looking at documents and I can do that, but I love people. So I would have been like looking outside of the window in that job. So I think they had a very good insight. At the moment, I thought, oh yeah, I could have done this and it would have been a good one. But yeah, with this, really, if you are looking for someone who will stay long term, yeah, I would have been thinking, how do I get out of this all the time? Even though I could have been, performing. So I think it's very, very helpful.
Awesome. Great insights, Monica. Thank you. All right. I'll let you all ask if there are any other questions or takeaways that we want to chat about, or we've got plenty of time left.
They don't have these, right, to view?
They do not have, for Monica, I'll send you an email with like 2 PDFs in it. It'll be a little bit more kind of instructive as far as what that you can get out of these assessments and debriefs. So we're talking like 20+ pages of really rich and applicable insights into what your DISC score actually means for you and for the people you're working with.
I have a question regarding the different cultures this has been used.
Yep.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the key as far as when I described it as a universal language. That means it's a language that truly bridges cultures and spoken languages. And so I think when the people at TTI have run the statistics on everything, they are looking at that cross-culturally for anyone that has ever taken it. And so I don't know how much it has penetrated one culture versus the next, but I know that what we're basically the fundamentals of it are universal in how they apply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a follow-up actually, because I work with the language of money. That's my specialty. And I am also trained in MBTI. I will say, I don't know if you're familiar with the MBTI, but I will describe it as the language of preference. Because in MBTI, we talk about what's your preference for extroversion and introversion, right? What would you say the DISC evaluates? Is the language of behavior, or am I right?
Yeah. I think behavior is the best thing that you would say. It's more than a personality test, because a lot of it has to do with the way you're working, the way you're solving problems, more so than just like, what is your preference on something? And so I think that's how we at Focal Point describe it, as a behavioral assessment.
And to take the assessment, how do you do that?
So I would be happy to facilitate that. I'm a certified facilitator of that, and then I can show you on this next slide what that's valued at. So exclusive offer if you're here today, which just the 4 of you, but any interest at all, let me know. We give you a DISC assessment. Like I said, that'll be just an emailed link to go to and take that assessment online. Takes about 15 to 20 minutes. I do ask you to do it all in one setting. But again, pretty straightforward. And then immediately from there, we'll get that assessment report back. And you can schedule a debrief with me. We'll typically take 45 minutes to an hour to go through that just in great detail, just to figure out what are the parts of it that you agree with, what parts of it are you a little skeptical about, and just figure out what is the most meaning that you can get and apply to from that report. So $199 for all of that, which we typically at Focal Point, if we weren't doing the chamber discount, we would, the list price is like $400, but I can't say that I've had anybody pay that yet, so we'll see. Monica, how do those prices compare to some of your assessments?
I'm trained on MBTI, but I don't use I'm not actively for that. And then for the money personality assessment, I have a different model. The assessment is free at leveragelingo.com. And then I'm doing a series on individual assessments, but I do a 4-day coaching on money language, on money mindset. It would be it is a different model, certainly.
Okay, that's all right. And our model is a little bit different too. Like I say, assessments is really just like one piece of what we offer as coaches. Our bread and butter is still that one-on-one coaching relationship, establishing those contacts one-on-one, and doing that 4 times a month, twice a month, whatever is convenient. And then doing workshops and group coaching sessions like this. That's sort of the other model that we lean into. All right. Well, the last slide just says thank you. So once again, thank you, Amy, and thank you, Ureli, for bringing Renee in and helping support this up and coming coach. And Monica, thank you as always for joining from Ecuador. Appreciate you.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Keep going